Hey everyone, welcome back for another amazing sesh today. We have a special guest on the show. I am thrilled because he is a fellow veteran and a cybersecurity colleague. Now, I know and you know how challenging it is to get into this industry. And talking with Eric, he has a very unique background. Not only was he an EOD bomb tech, but now he's in the cybersecurity space, thriving as a cybersecurity professional. And what's really awesome and why I really wanted him to come on the show is he just recently passed in and received his CISSP. And he actually shared a 3-page document on LinkedIn with the community. So we're going to be diving into that. We're going to have Eric Spencer share his story with us of being an EOD and then transitioning into the cybersecurity space. So stay tuned for that. And if you haven't done so already, make sure that you like, subscribe, and share with others. All right, so let's go ahead and bring the special guest on the stage, onto the show, whatever you want to call this virtual stage. Eric Spencer, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, Jax. This is a great opportunity. I appreciate you having me on and being able to share my story, getting into cybersecurity, and also the recently passing the CISSP exam.
So little secret on that. I have been studying for my CISSP. I think what year is it now? Like 2 years. So I'm serious.
You can do it.
I know. So when I saw your post on LinkedIn, I'm like, oh my gosh. And you always deliver such great content to the community. And when we're going to be sharing screen and I'll be going through the document with everybody, but when you shared this document, I was like, oh my gosh, I literally not only combed through it, but highlighted it. And that was one of the reasons I reached out to you to have you on the show. But before we get too deep into it, because I want to jump in, I know the guests want to hear a little bit about you, especially the EOD side. So if you can share a little bit about being an EOD, what is EOD? What does that mean? And then how you got to where you're at today. That would be awesome.
Absolutely. A little bit further back, I was born and raised a Hoosier. So I grew up in Indiana. And not long after high school, I graduated high school, I enlisted in the Air Force. When I went into the Air Force, we weren't at war yet. And actually, on September 11th, I was sitting in front of the IED division building at EOD school. So I moved into my first duty location, and the EOD, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq really brought EOD to the forefront and highlighted our abilities. So a few of the things that I really enjoyed about EOD was the pace and the impact that I had as an EOD tech. So a few highlights of my time in. It was 1 month I was in Afghanistan responding to IED calls to reduce risk to coalition forces and innocent villagers. The following month, I was assisting the Secret Service in the first presidential visit to Mongolia. Fast forward to the next year, I was recovering remains from the Vietnam War to return those to the family members of the service member to provide closure after 40 years. So it was an extremely rewarding career field. And when I was searching for my next career, I really wanted to find something that would be at that level of impact.
Yeah, it's an interesting transition. And so when you talk about before we go into kind of that transition point, can you share a little bit about what is an EOD tech? Like share a story. So because this is an amazing, I've worked with you guys. We worked side by side with the EOD tech, and I worked with the Navy EOD, and they were embedded into the teams, the ODAs that we worked with, and I carried their Thor for them. So I carried one of the devices that would jam the EODs on the ground, because this was in northern Afghanistan is where we were actually operating. So I was curious if you can share like a story to kind of explain what your job entailed.
Wow. So there's a wide variety of what a normal day looks like, right? So stateside, home station is kind of one thing, and in a deployed environment, it's completely different. But just to kind of give an idea of the pace of it, is in a deployed environment for between 5 and 6 months deployed, we ran 440 combat missions. So what that would look like is a call saying something happened, and you're grabbing your go bag and either heading out for a convoy or jumping in a helicopter to fly out to a site around maybe Iraq or Afghanistan. We were in a support role for other military units so that they could do their job, right? So they needed to move between different locations, maybe go out to villages, different things. But so what that kind of looks like is you fly out to a site, establish a safe, secure area, and then get to work on whatever was found. And the whatever was found can range from a small piece of ordnance that's just laying on the ground somewhere to massive IEDs that are meant to maim and kill. There's a lot of different aspects to that. There's a lot of different techniques, TTPs, to really take care of that IED. I've been out of the game for quite a while. Those TTPs have evolved, but really what we're looking at doing is that IED doesn't know who it's going to hurt. It doesn't look and say, this is a bad guy, this is a good guy. It blows up and anyone around it is injured or killed. So it was extremely rewarding to be able to do that, right? To be able to make those IEDs go away and keep personnel safe.
Yeah, and these IEDs were all over the area, and you were, just so everybody is clear, like, Eric was responsible for going over and eliminating them and deactivating them or making them explode in a isolated, controlled environment. Anything that they needed to do, they were designed, these guys were trained to go out and walk up to a bomb, knowing there is a likelihood they could get blown up themselves. I mean, you didn't even talk about the EOD suits that weigh like 80 pounds, which I'm like, why would you even wear those? Because if you're going to get blown up, honestly, Eric, do the suits actually keep you alive? Like, if you were actually, depending on the size, I think it probably depends on the size of the bomb and the EOD and the IED. It's not going to keep you alive if it actually blows up, but you're wearing 80 pounds and it's hard to function and move in. I mean,
it does. And a lot depends on what type of IED, the size of it, what shrapnel or anything that's attached to it. But the company that makes them is Medeng, and the owner of Medeng actually has a video out that he gets into the suit, stands next to a few pounds of explosives. It blows up and he survives, right? So he puts himself into that situation to prove that it does work. I know some guys that have been in the suit that it saved their lives. They were pretty messed up. Long-term effects from it, but they survived it.
So EOD into what many would consider you're in risk and compliance. So GRC, government risk and compliance, which is, pretty exciting. I enjoy it. However, it's not like deployment and heloing in and getting shot at and disarming bombs. Wow. Why GRC? Why this space, risk and compliance?
I could really draw the parallels to in EOD, it's more physical, right? You are responding to IEDs, you are flying out, but there's a lot of parallels between it, right? You have to continuously study the adversary. You really need to know how they're attacking. You need to know what you're protecting you need to know how to protect it, and you need to make sure you take those steps to protect it. So all of those played into my role as an EOD tech, and now into my role as a cybersecurity professional. And that's one of the reasons that I really wanted to get into cybersecurity.
I love it. And I'm thrilled that you're here. I mean, it's awesome, not just here on the screen, but here in the community. It's with us in cybersecurity. You're a very detailed person, at least from what I could see. You're very detailed. You have to be. I just was having a conversation with a woman this morning on PCI, and I think it's PCI DSS, and that whole frameworks and understanding it, and what you need to do as like a new hire in that position, and being organized and paying attention to detail is really critical, probably in a lot of aspects, if not all, within the cybersecurity space. But I think it's really important within compliance and the GRC space. And you put out a really good document on the CISSP test, and it was very well laid out, and you really had like a methodology. And I'm really curious, like, what inspired you, before we share the document and kind of go through that? I want to dig a little deeper. What inspired you to take the time? Because that's what it is. I mean, being able to present information to the community and give it to them, it takes our personal time to do that, free, selflessly. And so you developed this 3-page document, really detailed on your process to get through it. Why did you do that?
Early on, when I got onto LinkedIn, I came across Josh Mason's page, and I reached out to him, and he basically said, do better, contribute, whatever you can. You're new into the space, but find your role and do better. So I knew after passing the CISSP exam that I wanted to share that. I wanted to share that with the community on LinkedIn. I wanted to share that with the community in the cyber risk management program at IU. So I really just picked out how I studied for it. Mm-hmm. The main components of it, what sources I used, and most of the sources, that wasn't something that I went out and found or anything. That was from the cyber risk management program at IU. They provided some of those documents and the books, and I reused those once I was completed with the degree. But I really wanted to share that it's not a linear path, right? Mm-hmm. You have your ups and downs. We're all human. So I attempted twice in the fall of last year, and then earlier this summer. And life sometimes just happens, and we can't control that. And I really wanted to get that across of, you can do it. Yeah, I was able to pass it. I was able to study, pass it. Anyone can do it.
Yeah, so let's pull. I love that, because you even noted that in here in a couple of these areas about having life. So starting kind of from the top, I like how you put a note in here for everybody to know the intent of the document, like bottom line up front. It was really content doesn't include any questions or answers to the actual CISSP. It was really this document was the methodologies that you use with not only your study material, but then your actual study path. So this is where I loved how you did almost a timeline, because you even said fall 2020. That's when you really started. Was that your first time to actually dive into studying for the CISSP? Was fall 2020?
Yes, there's actually a free class at IU with the master's program that is a CISSP primer, and it's kind of a guided study path where there's an instructor that you can ask questions, and she does an amazing job. Rachel Dockery, she's also on LinkedIn. Look her up. She does a great job of answering those questions and putting out weekly questions and documents to help you move through studying for the CISSP.
I like it. Okay. Then another thing I wasn't even aware about was LinkedIn learning videos while you're waiting for your new edition for the study materials. So there's LinkedIn learning videos for CISSP. Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And
Okay. Cool.
the author, one of the authors for the official CISSP um, study guide is the one that does those videos, Mike Chappell.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, you're kind of getting that information from him in two different forms.
Yeah. And then this I loved because I'm all about tracking stuff. And because it helps me, I'm a very visual person, but I need to have my my micro goals to get me to the macro, because otherwise I'm like, this isn't really working. I don't know if I'm getting any better, because all you see is the test score when you're taking the test, the exams, the practice exams. But if you're not actually writing them down, you're not going to know how much better you're getting in certain areas. So I love that you created this Excel spreadsheet to really identify your weak areas and then study that. Where did you get that idea? Because did you create your own Excel spreadsheet? Did you have one? Did they present one to you?
I created my own, and that's just something as far back as I can remember that I've done. Is I like to see where I currently am, where I was, and where I need to go. And so by making that Excel spreadsheet, I could see all that, you know, in a visual form where it was really easy. Once it was created, it was just going in and putting. I didn't even have to put in my scores. I was just tracking as I put in the answers to the questions. Then it was coming up and tracking my scores so that I could see that.
I love that idea. All right, then
I have that as well, so I can share that.
Oh, that would be great. Yes, if you can share that, I can add it as either a link, like a Google Sheets link, however you want to share it, or they can reach out to you. We'll figure that out. But I'll put all the notes in all the notes in the show notes down below for everybody. And then just so everybody sees, like he started fall 2020, went into July, felt ready to go. Boom, life happens. This is the truth. That's why I've been doing this for 2 years. I'm also in grad school, but that's my excuse. But anyway, then you rescheduled. So what does this exclamation mean? You're like, I rescheduled, and then you rescheduled again.
I wanted to take it the first time.
Yep.
Things happened, right? That I couldn't control. I had to reschedule it. More things happened.
Yep.
Everything happens in threes, right? So more things happened, and I had to reschedule again. And that was kind of the, okay, no more rescheduling. You're going to do this. One way or another. You're either going to take it and fail, or you're going to take it and pass, but you are going to take it.
And that's what happened in September 2021. So when you decided, did you just you're like, okay, that's it. Like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to find a test date. I'm signing up. I'm doing it. And then you went into cram mode for that week up to the test. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it was kind of, pulling back from experience in EOD school. It was major cram. You had to remember this stuff. You had to take the exam. There was no exception. So I kind of went into that mode of don't contact me. I'm not responding. After I passed the exam, I had family and friends reach out saying, you know, I knew you were studying that weekend. I didn't want to burden you with anything. I didn't want to contact you. So having, you know, an incredible family and friends that understand you going into that study mode is definitely helpful.
Yeah. And you put down here, I mean, you studied on average 2 to 4 hours a day, reading and completing the chapter reviews. I'm guessing that was during the week, because then you even said on the weekends you did 2 days of 8 hours and 8 hours. Like that's intense. I've done that. I've definitely done those days, and it's exhausting. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Absolutely. And this part was the 2 to 4 hours was back in May when I received the new study materials, which if you have the old study material, there's no reason to buy the new one. Most of the stuff is the same. So that was back in May, where each evening I would just sit down and knock out a chapter, do the chapter review, have all of that logged so I could see my progress, and really try to understand it chapter by chapter.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows too, in May, I think it was May of this year, that the testing of the questions and everything were supposed to change, right? Everything
Yes.
for CISSP. The cost changed. That's why they have a new book now. I think there's GDPR has been added to this book, this test, or it was supposed to be from previous books, but there wasn't like you're saying, if you have older versions, they're still relevant enough that you're going to be able to pass the test. You don't need to buy brand new books on everything because the changes were really minute. Is that correct?
From my understanding, yes.
Yeah. I mean, you passed, and so you bought the most recent versions of the books.
Yes. So in fall of last year, I made it about halfway through the previous version of the CISSP official study guide.
Cool.
And then this May, I went chapter by chapter and made it through, I believe it's 21 chapters.
Yeah, it's something really intense. My book is like this big. It's and then I got the book. Yeah, it's ginormous. It's sitting over there somewhere in the coffee table, stowed away. I'll get back.
You can do it, Jax.
I know I can. I'm like, you know what? I'm in grad school learning all these things. I'll just keep going through. I just need to rip the Band-Aid off and just go take it. Good God. It's not a terrible price. I think it's only like what, $400 now with the raise in since May. I think it went up. I don't know. What is the cost?
I think it's $749.
Okay, maybe I got the wrong. Okay. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, 700. Don't look at my 400. There's so many different prices. I don't even know where they make up these prices sometimes.
Well, and then each reschedule is $50, I believe. So for some of us, it's a little bit more expensive.
Yep.
With those reschedules.
Yeah, I think it used to be 600. That's what it was. I think it used to be 600 in May, six something, and then in May it went up like $75 or something like that, and now it's over 700 for CISSP. I think Security Plus is 300. It's hard to remember all of the certs. What I like what you did here is like study tips. So you kind of like gave them a little like idea of how long it took for you, which I like, because that can help them set their expectations for themselves, not thinking, oh, I can kind of do like a little bit here and there. No, this is a big lift and it takes a lot of time. And then you really, again, attention to detail. I love how you started like each paragraph kind of with like an outline, like be willing to adapt, relate to your experiences, identify weak points, and make notes. Long ago, and then this I wanted to dive into a little bit, but I really liked how you kind of broke these down, and I really like, because this is how I study, relate to your experience. I always try to, when I'm studying something, if I can't understand it, I either try to think about something that I've gone through in my personal experience, or I will reach out to a mentor or somebody's in that space and be like, can you give me an example around this so I can understand this a little bit better? And that's when I read that, that's how I kind of understood what you were trying to say right there.
I do the exact same thing. And we have Google and YouTube and people in the community, right, that are constantly posting great content, and being able to look into those and there are things that you're just not going to understand the first time, right? So be willing to go out and research those more until you get that level of understanding that you're comfortable answering questions about it.
I love it. Let's dig into this just a tad bit. This 3x5. This was the first time I had heard about the method to memorization, and you kind of just briefly touched on it. But when did you learn about the 3x5, and have you always used that process?
It's been a long time ago. My mother taught me that. So our brain kind of remembers things between 3 and 5. So I used it in high school a bit, but in EOD school, I really used it and applied it during test, because the first day of prelim, the course in EOD, was I took about 30 pages of notes. I had 3 hours that evening to memorize it and take a test the next day, and I had to score at least an 85% to move on to the next day. So it really drove home the fact that you have to learn this stuff. Another area I learned Japanese as an undergrad, and I used it to memorize kanji, so the Chinese character in the Japanese language. But it's basically just taking any group of like objects, put them into 5, and then take the first 3. Run through those as much as you need so that you can just name them or memorize them, recall them without even thinking about it. Once you have those set in memory, add 2 more to that. Once you have those in, then start back at the beginning and run through all 5. So I used it kanji for learning different words, different in EOD country codes, different things. I've used it, and it's really helped me. I believe in the Exam Cram YouTube video, they talk about chunking. So it's kind of a version of chunking. And that really helped me out.
I love that idea. Okay, I'll have to give that a shot myself. I've never used it. I like how you put in here, the CISSP isn't a memorization exam. It's an implementation exam. There's AI, and you know this, there's AI that really, like if you're starting to do really well in one area, one domain, they'll get you off of that and shift you to another one. And it's really, you have to be able to understand and apply the processes in this. You can't just memorize it because they'll give you like use cases that you have to move through. So I love that you pointed that out because a lot of people don't realize that about the exam. And then you just highlight, you have time to finish. I mean, it's about 100 to 150 questions and 3 hours to complete it. So unlike me, I freak out in tests, and then the next thing you know, I'm sitting there and 10 minutes has passed and I'm still on the same question. Oh, and I like that you talked about like the pre-day, getting there on time. Like you broke down everything, taking the noise canceling headphones, and it's a noisy room, process of elimination, read the questions carefully, all of that, and then additional information. So I'll make sure that I'll get with you and figure out if we can do a Google link on this and throw this down in the show notes below for everybody to be able to get a hold of this document. I know you've already shared it online so they can reach out to you, but I know we're coming to time right now, but before we hop off, I know that the viewers are going to want to reach out to you. What is the best way for them to be able to contact you? Is that LinkedIn or an email address?
So you can reach me on LinkedIn. I'm sure you'll post it somewhere with a video, but please reach out to me. I'm happy to help. I've experienced so many willing to mentor me, to help me out with my cybersecurity journey. We're all in this together, right? The quicker that we communicate and we all become better, then the quicker we can kind of reach cyber peace and relax a little bit more. So please reach out. I'm happy to help.
I love it. Eric, you are a natural leader, an awesome mentor. I'm so thrilled that we were able to connect. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Thank you for being so kind.
Of course. Bye. Hey guys, that was amazing. Eric is a wealth of knowledge. Make sure to go find him on LinkedIn. And if you haven't done so already, reminder, like, subscribe, and thank you all for your support. See you next week.